Okay, to continue, how we solve the problem. Okay. Well, first let's go back to the original topology. We design the topology like this way, right? And then customer connect the common ground of DC4055 and DC40A. They're common ground. Okay, they share the ground, and then this positive device is negative device. So first is move them isolated, right? So this is the first step. What do we do? Here has some detail. Okay, I mean we put this devices in DC24 and this device is in DC55. Here some detail you need to understand is first. I mean why DC55 is because only on DC55 the PoE switch can go with A02.3 BT and PoE++ standards, right? But meanwhile, the NVR, why it works as DC24? Here we need to be very careful because there's many details the provider will never tell us. The NVR has PoE functions. So when it performs PoE functions, it needs DC40A, okay? So that's why customer connects this NVR to the DC40A. But in the reality is, in this scenario, the NVR never used its PoE functions. You use the PoE switch as a PoE functions, and NVR is just working as NVR. So when it works as only NVR, the DC24 it perfectly work. But for provider, they will never tell you it will work. And because you see, you can ask them their R&D, the R&D say, it must work as DC40A, but no one will tell you this kind of details. But what happened is the site already deployed. So how do we solve, right? We have to try it. So we use the DC24 to make it work, and it works. So at the beginning, the customer didn't believe about this part. On the other hand, the DC24, there's at the beginning we have a design. It's something like because the provider insists to have to go with DC40A, so we try to put an independent DC40A module from DC24 change it to DC40A, which is very complex. And remember, there's a lot of site on the real field, right? You change everything; it's very complex. So we make it work like this way. Second is try to use unshared Ethernet cable to all the devices. You see that the UPS itself has SMP reporting to the software platform, so we have to connect to the PoE switch, right? Then we use unshared Ethernet cable and connect it to the PoE switch. NVR use unshared Ethernet cable connect to the PoE switch. This is probably not necessary, but anyway, we just don't want them to make a mistake, so we ask them to use unshared Ethernet cable. Then this we isolate their grounding, right, from the Ethernet cable side. Then on the other hand, remember that we have to solve here the problem. I mean the metal board here on the bottom connected NVR with the PoE switch, right? So how do you solve it to isolate them? Okay, remember that we can use this kind of plastic screw and with the washers, and you use the plastic to fix it, but you have to put some washers to put it to lay under the NVR to make the NVR isolated from the metal board. Okay. Then it will isolate it from the grounding of the PoE switch. So it's very important here to do the job like this way. I mean, this is this is because it's already on the field, we solve like this way. I mean, I still don't think put the negative devices and positive devices together is a good idea, okay? Then in the end, you have to pay a lot of attention that they put the positive devices grounding and the negative devices grounding isolated, okay? Here has some details. You see that you really can do something like the NVR itself. If you don't have the condition to put the grounding isolated from this grounding, you can make the ground of the NVR float. I know it's very dangerous, but when you don't have choice, you can make it float. The reason is because the the PoE switch, you will have the PoE switch connected with the camera and go outside of the cabinet, right? So obviously you have to consider something like a surge protection or something. So you have to make the PoE switch grounded. Otherwise, if not connected with grounding, the surge protection will not work, right? The 5G router, because it has antenna go outside of the cabinet, so obviously you have surge protection issue if you don't have the grounding well. But the NVR is only work inside the cabinet. And the NVR itself at power consumption is not very high. So when you don't have any choice, you can put it afloat without grounding. Okay. When you don't have any choice, this is not the best way. Okay. The best way is like this: negative devices grounding and the positive grounding separated. But to be honest, it's very difficult on the site to do something like this. I know, So let's have a conclusion. This problem in the DC UPS, the important part is not to solve the short circuit with this temporary solution. The real root of the reason is at the beginning we isolated different devices, and we're not expecting positive one devices and the negative devices are in the same system, but actually in the end it's like this. So for CCTV UPS system, for CCTV system with the PoE switch and the 5G routers, everything together, we should be very sure that the whole system, the the grounding, its positive devices and their grounding design, all these kind of details. Otherwise, this kind of problem will give you a lot of headache. Okay.